Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sam and Cole podcast presented by the HIT Center of Jacksonville, the High Intensity Training Center. Got that New Year's resolution down. Just want to get some things done. Want to do it in a group. Want to do it at your own pace. All that's available right there across the street from Steak and Shake on Route 1. Pretty convenient for a lot of people. And, you know, the other thing, Cole, I was thinking about is a lot of people are already members at gyms. And this really isn't like a gym membership, so to speak. This is a place where you want to go tune up. You know, you could go there a lot, and you might find if it's convenient for you, you can go there and really get it figured out. But if you want to go there, have some numbers taken, join a boot camp class, which you can go to, by the way, for $99 for as many as you want for a month. All of that stuff, 70 yards of field turf, every toy you could think of. The High Intensity Training Center can help you either set a goal or achieve it. That's for sure, and not a lot of money. Jameis Winston told us on Monday that he would make a decision and an announcement right after the national championship game, and then, of course, within 12 hours, he announced that he was going to turn professional.
Kind of typical, isn't it?
Yeah. And as Jimbo Fisher said, look, anything this guy does doesn't surprise me, and nothing surprised me there. He's got better arm talent than anybody, including Marcus Mariota. He's got an NFL kind of body for a quarterback. He's got plenty of talent. He apparently is very coachable, according to everybody around him. Plays the game fast. You know, none of that is in question. His off-the-field antics and his personality sometimes during the game with his relationship with the coach are going to things that the NFL is going to vet him. And after all that is said and done, somebody's going to take him number one.
Probably, and I think about this, that you go from Cam Newton, who had great...
He's a felon.
Well, you go from Cam Newton had great measurables, big, strong guy, runs, throws, the whole thing. Had the off-field questions. Johnny Manziel, not quite as good measurables, not as big, pretty strong arm, style didn't quite connect, a lot of off-field issues. I was trying to remember, did Jamarcus Russell have some off-field questions? If not, he should have.
Yeah.
A little different type anyway.
The question off-field there was dedication, basically.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not all legal. It's but
right.
So, but you think about this quarterback draft, and Dave Caldwell actually said this last year. You might recall when after they drafted Blake Bortles, he said that they had looked at last year's draft and this coming draft and decided that Bortles was the best choice, that by opening day 2015, Bortles would be better than any of the other quarterbacks. Still remains to be seen whether that's the case.
Yeah.
But I looked at Winston and Mariota.
Yeah, and I just think I remember that distinctly, and you know, we remember that he said that after Jameis Winston had just won the national championship and a lot of this other stuff hadn't been revealed. Some of it hadn't even happened. And a lot of people were like, wow, he doesn't think Winston is that good or doesn't think maybe Winston is the right guy. Nonetheless, quarterbacks are always overvalued,
yeah.
and guys like Jameis Winston aren't available every year. And somebody's going to go up there and take them, which is all good news for the Jaguars.
Yes, I was going to say one of the best parts of this is that the Jaguars now have a chance to potentially draft the best player in the draft, because the first two guys could be quarterbacks who go in the draft. Could be Winston and Mariota in whatever order, and then the Jaguars could take ostensibly the best player in the draft remaining.
Which is who?
Well,
and let me ask you this: do you just take the best player in the draft, or can the Jaguars be specific? And because they have so many needs,
they can be semi-specific.
And if a quarterback is still there, they'll sit there and entertain offers.
Well, okay. So here, let me, for those who have not heard my draft philosophy, let me put a couple of notes on this. First of all, if you're drafting in the top 5, probably the top 10, but certainly the top 5, you take a quarterback, a left tackle, a pass rusher, or a great cover corner. Right? Those are the positions that are hardest to find at a high level. So, is there a great quarterback? The Jaguars would take it through. They're not taking a quarterback. They took their quarterback last year. Apparently, they're not taking a left tackle, and there's not that top left tackle. I think the guy from Iowa, Brandon Scherf, is the top tackle, but he's not thought of as a Baselli, and so they're still riding with Jokel, so they're going.
So you don't take a right tackle there.
You don't take a right tackle there,
or you don't take this guy and figure, okay, he's our insurance policy against Jokel.
You could do that, okay, and the Jaguars years ago had a chance to do that with Jonathan Ogden and did not. Took
Right.
Kevin Hardy instead, and could have put Ogden at right. Can you imagine those two twin towers or have Ogden play left guard as he did for a little while in Baltimore? I think for a month and a half before they moved him back outside.
Right.
So those are the positions that they would not look at in any way. There are some pass rushers, and I think you said last week that they'd be crazy to pass up on the USC pass rusher.
Leonard Williams,
who was from Daytona Beach, I think.
Mainland High.
And there are some other pass rushers.
Yeah. What's the guy in Nebraska? Ryan.
Yeah, the guy in Nebraska is probably the next best pass rusher.
Ryan Gregory or something.
Ryan Gregory. Vic Beasley's kind of an interesting guy who could be out of Clemson in that category. I think it's a little high for him. The defensive back position is the other interesting one because the Jaguars, they need safety, and you're not going to draft a safety that high, I don't think. But you look at the difference makers, who you're going to find. Would they draft a wide receiver if they decide that a wide receiver is worth it up there? And
no.
Apparently Amari Cooper, that's a little high for him.
Right.
Exactly. But if Randy Moss was sitting there, and this is kind of philosophical, would you take a Randy Moss, or would you take a Calvin Johnson? Take the off the field stuff out. Would you take Calvin Johnson if he was sitting there at 3?
Well, knowing what Calvin Johnson became, yeah, obviously.
Right. So in other words, you shouldn't just write off that position.
Yeah.
Unless there's, it would have to be.
But it doesn't appear that there is anybody like that. And when you look at this class in the top 5, and that's where the Jaguars are going to be picking, unless they decide that they're going to get out of there, and if they see the tackle from Iowa as a guy that they can get 6th, and don't care if they take the guy from Nebraska or the guy from Southern Cal, if that's all the same to them, then, I think you really got to look at one of these players. The Jaguars need a first-round pick this year that, unlike what the Browns did last year, where they traded around a lot and ended up getting Johnny Manziel, and they got trying to think of who else they picked. But nonetheless, the Jaguars have to have a first-round pick that is an impact player, somebody who comes in and plays, somebody who starts, somebody who you say, okay, he's going to make some rookie mistakes, but boy, at other times he's going to be dominant.
I don't think they're going to get that with the first-round pick. I think they have a better chance to get that in their second-round pick, to be honest with you.
Why is that?
Because I think the positions that you would spend at that top that first round, you're not going to get a starter because the areas that they need, again, they're not going to draft left tackle. Pass rusher, I don't think comes in and starts right away. He could be a contributor and could make, but rookie pass rushers usually don't make an immediate impact. Don't make a huge difference.
I tell you what, if they draft Leonard Williams, he starts, okay, and because they can line him up at defensive tackle even, but he's going to be a starter. That guy's a monster. He's 6'5", 300, moves Sam, like a running back. I mean,
I'm not saying that they won't eventually, but they're just, you look historically, and pass rushers, defensive linemen, don't typically come in and make a huge impact. Now, is he Ndamukong Suh, who was terrific as a rookie? Is he that level of player? I haven't watched him enough to say yes. I've seen him a bit. I saw a lot of Suh, including here at the Gator Bowl, and I think it was his junior year. and he was, dominant. And as long as he can stop stepping on players, he's he's a dominant defensive tackle.
By the way, the Jaguars may have a chance to sign Ndamukong Suh.
Well, which would be very interesting, wouldn't it?
Right. Yes, it would.
So there's a long way to go on the draft here, and obviously a lot of this is going to be impacted by, in terms of if you draft a guy. The reason I say I think second round pick has a bigger chance to start is because of the glaring needs. You would pick a safety in the second round. You would pick a running back in the second round. You might pick a tight end in the second round. And those guys might potentially all have a chance to start right away. The other positions you would pick in the top 5, and based on the guys who are out there in the top 5, I don't think you can find a guy who can contribute on the defensive line. I don't think you find a guy who's going to come right in and start right away.
Well, I just still think that they need somebody. I heard Jimmy Johnson say this once when he was trying to build the Cowboys in their early 90s. When he picked Emmitt Smith, they said, "What was your thinking here?" And he said, "We just felt like we couldn't miss here. You've got to get somebody, no matter what position it's at."
What position was that?
Yeah, that was running back when it mattered.
When it mattered, but in terms of draft position, I'll have to look it up. But it wasn't top 5.
No. You're right. It was 22nd, I think, overall, and they took Emmitt Smith to run behind that massive offensive line that they had put together.
17th pick. 17th
overall.
Yeah.
And so there's a to me there's a to me that's a philosophy the Jaguars have to have. They got to take somebody who's a can't miss there, as much as you can call a pick a can't miss. And so that's why. Do you believe that Mariota and Winston will go 2-1, 1-2 somehow like that?
I feel like that's the most likely combination of 1-2. That boxing that Quinilla would be the most likely for me.
Yeah. Don't be surprised if Jameis Winston's picked first.
No, in fact, I think it's more likely that he gets picked first.
Right.
But I don't think either one of them is a slam dunk as the number one. But you're right. But quarterbacks always wind up going higher because there's a need. And if you look at the teams that are, they're picking at the top, they
need quarterbacks.
There's a lot of quarterback need. Buccaneers and number 1, Titans number 2,
right?
Jaguars and Oakland at 3 and 4 probably wouldn't. Redskins at 5,
maybe.
Might they? And I'm looking at teams that might want to move up if something happens. And that may be the most advantageous situation. The only team that doesn't have multiple picks in the first round, by the way, or that has multiple picks in the first round, is the Cleveland Browns, and they're not moving up to take a quarterback, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Although I might if I was them, but I wouldn't have drafted Manziel.
Tampa Bay has taken Jameis Winston, right? And then the Titans are going to take Marcus Mariota, and then the Jaguars are going to have a free pick right there. And some of that's wishful thinking because I really don't want to be in the same division with Jameis Winston. I don't want to see him twice a year. It's too good of an athlete. He can make too many good things happen.
So let's say that Winston goes 1 and Mariota does not go 2, and pick anybody goes number 2. Now the Jaguars are sitting there, and one of those teams like Washington or the Jets or maybe the Bears, whomever, now want to move up, and that's another great situation.
That is a great situation because then you name your price, you move down a couple of spots, you probably have the guy from Nebraska, the tackle from Iowa. Let's say Williams goes with the number 2 pick. So you got maybe 3 guys there that you have just about at the same level. So yeah, you can move back 1, 2, 3 spots and still get the kind of player that you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Jaguars have the luxury of moving back to 22, to 15. They gotta have a pick, in the top 6 or 7, and get somebody that they project as somebody who's going to be an impact player.
Now, I agree with you. They've got to get somebody who's going to help make them better. I don't think he has to be a starter, but he has to help make them better. And if that's a running back, I'd be surprised. If it's a wide receiver, I'd be surprised. I think it's going to be defense. I think they're going to be defense heavy in terms of the draft, and I think they would love to be able to get a safety in the second round who could come in and play free safety. The other guy who I think is intriguing in the second round if he's there is Gurley, because wouldn't he look very good?
Second round.
Yeah, top of the second round. Because he's a guy, I don't know if he'll last that long, but he looks like he could be a major player, especially in the blocking scheme that they have.
Another ACL guy, though.
They weren't afraid of Aaron Colvin.
Right. No, it's true. So, I just think that there's a lot to that, and some of the Jaguars' decision making will be colored by what they're able to do in free agency, because I think they're going to spend money in free agency. And don't be surprised if they look for a pass rusher, if they look for an offensive lineman with some seasoning, if they look for a safety, if they look for a defensive back, if they look for a tight end, if they sign the thing is that you can sign decent running backs for not a lot of money who are free agents.
Yeah.
And you see people plugged in, and I mean Justin Forsett's a good example of a guy who
the Jaguars could have signed him.
Oh. Yeah, and for a guy who was available, didn't get an opportunity, got a shot, and obviously made the most of it. So that's what you're looking for. And I don't know if you watched the Baltimore Pittsburgh game the other day, but when they kept focusing on Justin Forsett and his blocking, I thought that was very telling. That's why a lot of guys get into games. Or get onto rosters, but don't get into games because they can't do that. They can't figure out how to do that. They've never been asked to do that.
Just one interesting note. I'm looking at one mock draft here that has the Jaguars in the second round taking Melvin Gordon, the running back out of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. Is he big enough? Is he big enough?
I think it's a little bit of a stretch. I think he was very productive in college behind a humongous offensive line, but I think that's a little bit higher than he would go. But 2 picks later, free safety. 2 picks later after that, free safety. 2 picks later after that, free safety. So you've got 3 free safeties projected in the top half of the second round on this particular mock draft. So just kind of interesting to see how that may play out. Hey, by the way, we've got college basketball starting to round into form. Mm-hmm. Kentucky kept it close with Ole Miss last night. Right. They are still. I'm telling you, they're going to lose fewer than 2 games. Kentucky.
And as you know, I love talking about college basketball, and I love covering college basketball, and Billy Donovan is my favorite person in all of sports. And what is the consensus? Kentucky wins the national championship. I mean, it's not like we're sitting around going, well, what do you think?
This is the best team I've seen since the UNLV teams back in the early 90s. And I will say, obviously one of those teams won a national championship. The next year they went undefeated throughout the whole year and lost to Duke in the national semifinals. It wasn't the national finals, national semifinals. And then Duke beat Kansas after that. But there were a couple of games that were close for them through those years in that championship year. But I think it's a 50-50 chance that they go undefeated throughout the whole year.
I'm in with you. I might even put it a little bit higher than that. I mean, they're just good. When you watch them, they're just good.
Yeah, really good.
They can play defense. They've got all those tall guys, and they got guys who can score. And the thing is that unlike previous years, they've got guys who have been through this one time too. To me, that's the thing that separates them from other Kentucky teams. They got guys who have been through it.
So the question is, will we see them in Jacksonville? And the answer is almost certainly not, because there is a regional or sub-regional in Louisville. So what that means is other teams in the Southeast, like North Carolina or Duke, could be coming here.
Would be coming here. And I can tell you that Mike Krzyzewski was incredibly complimentary of Jacksonville when they were here the last time. Mm-hmm. And they went on to win the national championship out of here, by the way. And, it was very interesting to hear Krzyzewski talk to everybody and about Jacksonville, about what it was like, and he made a point of doing that. I was very impressed with that.
Wouldn't it be something if you had both North Carolina and Duke here
Oh,
in different regions, but in this regional?
yeah, that'd be
this host location.
there'd be a lot of folks in town. That's for sure.
And a lot of them wearing blue, and a lot of them
That's right.
different shades of blue.
Not speaking to each other.
Just
A
shouting.
lot of them not speaking to
one
each
side or the other.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. I hope you've got a good start to Happy New Year. A lot of soccer, by the way, coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Florida Cup with the 2 matches a week from Saturday, and then the Armada opener against the Philadelphia Union on actually a month to the day from when we're taping this on February 7th. So
Very good.
A lot coming up. We are presented by the High Intensity Training Center in Jacksonville. Sam mentioned a 70-yard sport turf field, which means if I go in there and run that, I'm going to call that my 100-yard dash time and feel like I have a whole lot better time than I would ordinarily.
Whatever you want to do in there. They've got a sand pit. They've got one of those. They've got a basketball court. They've got TRX hanging there. They've got free weights. They've got machines. I mean, it's just a lot of. To me, there's just a lot of things in there that you can't get anywhere else. And the way that they talk to you about reaching your goals, particularly after you go through just a little bit of testing, which is not a lot of money, is to me that's the way to go.
All right, that'll do it for the Sam and Cole.
Fusion of science and sport.
There you go. The fusion of science and sport. That'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. Follow Sam on Twitter at Sam Kavaris. Follow me on Twitter at Cold Pepper. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher. Help spread the word and stay connected to us via social media as well. That'll do it for the Sam and Cole podcast. We'll talk to you next time as we inch closer to the draft and as we inch closer to free agency.